Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to our presentation. I'm Kieran.
I'm Badawan.
And that's Wanjin. And today,
Yep.
And today we'll be going through a presentation for MaskOff. Next slide, please. So the goal of our project is to help reduce transmission rates through better detection of improper mask wearing. So as I'm sure you can all relate, COVID-19 has become a huge part of everyone's lives. And although the vaccines are on the way, wearing masks is still essential in reducing the spread. And there's one U of T epidemiologist who said that having a mask but having it uncovered your nose is essentially the same as having an uncovered face. And a lot of the existing models just compare between mask and no mask, and they don't make this distinction. So this is what we wanted to explore here. Next slide, please. So more specifically, we want to, given a photo or potentially a video input with multiple people in, we want to not only be able to classify whether they're wearing a mask, no mask, or if they have their nose uncovered, but also give bounding boxes for that, so you can classify who was doing it. Next slide, please.
So the overall strategy in approaching this problem is, given a live video, we take the most recent frame, put it into a face detector, which gives us the coordinates of the faces. We crop it out, resize it appropriate to our model, and normalize based on means and standard deviations we got from the training set. It's transformed to a tensor, put into the model, and we get the final prediction along with the frame. We also add another YOLO model, which doesn't depend on the face detector and can find the faces and classify by themselves. Next slide, please. So these are the two models that depend on the face detector. The first one, the baseline, is a CNN with 3 convolutional layers followed by 2 fully connected MLP layers, whereas the second one, ResNet 18, is a model with 18 convolutional layers followed by a fully connected layer. Next slide, please.
Yeah, so for YOLO v5, it is considering like bounding box and classification as a single regression problem. And roughly speaking, it has the CNN which outputs the feature image, and it goes through the fully connected layer to classify the bounding box with the confidence and the classification probability. Next slide, please. And this is how we collected the data. We individually went through, collected videos of different classes of mask. We varied the lighting and camera angles. Next slide, please.
Great. And so to help us support the personal data that we collected as well, we decided to see what other data sets were available. So there's this mask data set which photoshops images of masks onto existing photos. And it has some pros and cons. The pros are that it's extremely large, so we can definitely build up our data set size, and it's quite diverse. But the cons are that because it's Photoshop images, there's actually no guarantee that this will transfer to real learning or real images. And so we can see that here for the uncovered nose example, there's a very unrealistic wriggle along the mask, which will become important later. Next slide, please. And something else we want to discuss is that because 2 of our models are essentially CNNs and one is YOLO, the inputs and outputs are slightly different. So we needed to have data sets that worked on both of them. So for here, we started with a mask wearing data set, which was made for YOLO. Here, the difference is mainly that YOLO requires a label and a bounding square, whereas the CNNs just require a label. And so this data set has around 150 images of multiple people in, which translates to roughly 3,500 covered, 874 uncovered, and 250 uncovered with a nose. And so as you can see, this is extremely unbalanced. And so what we did to fix this is we took a lot of the nose uncovered photos, augmented them to get a larger data set, as well as because we want to compare the models later on, it doesn't make sense to train them on different data. So we converted all the data that we were using on the CNN and ResNet into the YOLO format so we could use it there and vice versa. So the data is shared between the two. One of the issues that we ran into when we were converting this is that a lot of the annotated photos from the mask wearing data set, they were such low quality that like a human couldn't even tell the difference. So if you look at the 3 photos on the bottom, those are all apparently photos of people wearing a mask, which is just garbage. So we had to go through manually and delete all of those. Next slide, please.
So the first thing that we wanted to do, using the baseline model, just the CNN, we trained it on just the MaskNet data, which had the Photoshop. And as you can see, we achieve close to 100% accuracy very near the beginning. So obviously, this is far too good to be realistic. So next slide, please. Our partial solution was to add more data. Part of it was from the YOLO data set that Kieran mentioned. Part of it was our own data, and you can see some of the splits there. Next slide, please. So what we did to observe how big of a impact that the Photoshop data set had is train our model with the different data sets. So in the first row, you see a model that's trained on MaskNet, which had the photoshopped faces and validated on real. And as you can see, the results really don't apply to real life. Especially you can see in the confusion matrix where it's predicting pretty much everyone to not be wearing a mask. In the second row, we see trained on real and validated on the Photoshop, and this is performing somewhat better. And we want to get a mix of the two, and that's what we did for the full data set, which you see in the final row, which has a much more balanced confusion matrix. Next slide, please.
Yeah, for the accuracy, these are like as mentioned here. We didn't include YOLO, but it has high accuracy. Next slide, please. So this is a result, and as you can see, it shows you 3 different classes, which is mask, no mask, and the uncovered nose. Next slide, please.
Yeah, and so some of our key takeaways from this project is that the data set is really, really crucial to making sure that it applies in the real world. So our current data set,
you're out of time, so you should get finish this quickly.
Yeah. Okay. So essentially, key takeaways: Photoshop wasn't suitable, and also the accuracy. It's hard to compare when there's different parts in the program. Thank you.
All right. That was your last slide. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. It's really, really complete set of work here. It's very impressive. I really liked. The discussion went on for a while, but the work you did to try to create the data set, and that it is tricky from a bunch of perspectives. And yeah, but it's really great bunch of work. This wriggle question thing that you're talking about, were you worried that the wriggle was giving too much of a clue that when there was a wriggle, the nose you're in the nose exposed case? Was that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if you actually go back and look at the confusion matrix, when we compared them, we had like a rough idea that because the lighting and the color are the same for all the Photoshop masks, it could essentially make kernels for the wriggle. And if there's color and wriggle, then it's nose uncovered. If there's color but no wriggle, then it's mask. And then if there's no color present in the center of the image, it's just no mask.
Right.
So that's why we think it didn't transfer well to the real images.
All right, that's interesting. Another question: Is this a video that is then post-processed with the YOLO result to give the location?
No, this is not the YOLO result. This is our
This
the
was the
different model
baseline.
that we talked about.
Yeah,
baseline
this was
model.
the baseline.
Baseline where the face detector gets the box. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And am I looking at a piece of software that runs, or is this like it takes there's a lot of processing? There's samples of frames are manually chosen or something, and then I guess my question is this a running application, or is this kind of a lot of post-processing?
Oh no, it's
a running application.
One application. Yeah.
So you mean you could turn on a video and see this?
Like I can show it right now, for example, if I shared my screen, but we hadn't mentioned it earlier, but yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Also, we have we're preparing the software that goes with this, and that it shows like both the YOLO results and the our like baseline model results as well.
Sorry, I just wanted to stay with what you said. Batuan, do you want to try showing it?
Sure. Like we can try it right now. And,
yeah, if you got it running here, I'll just stop. I think you should be able to share.
Okay.
Tell me if you can't. I think it's set that you can share.
Yeah, I'll share my full screen and then. So I'll just run this. We should get a window.
You might have issues because you're using your camera.
Oh, my camera
Zoom
here.
As well as
Okay.
So
I'll try stopping the video. Oh, and then my screen still. Yeah. So there you go. That's no mask.
Oh, cool.
Here's mask, and then uncovered nose. Yeah.
So do that some more slowly.
Oh yeah, sure.
Mask. Yep. And then take it down under your nose. Uncovered nose. Look at that. Yeah. And then yeah.
I will say this is kind of cherry picking because I was part of the training data set as well. Yeah. So obviously it's going to predict appropriately for me. But
okay. Okay. Just one thing. Take your headphones off and do it again.
Sure.
Not that that matters, but I don't know. That makes me happier. Okay. Okay. Then there we go. There we go. Great. Hey. Hey, you guys, I did mention when I was talking about this whole thing that demos are fantastic. And now everybody else gets that because that was more impressive than a regular demo because you didn't know you were going to have to do it. And I would have taught you if you asked me. Most demos go wrong because something always goes wrong, but there it worked perfectly. And so everyone else now gets the beauty of a demo when it's appropriate. Just getting demoing something that just gives you a yes no answer isn't so exciting. But if it's running on a video, it is kind of cool. So that's really really neat. Let me go back to your slides. Oops, let's do this again. Sorry. Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, I really did like this. I think it's really great work. There's so much work here that you said so many things. Somebody should teach you, maybe who doesn't make you give 6-minute presentations, that you can't show this much data and say, as you can see, there's so many things here. There's nothing I can see here. So I teach my graduate students, as we're saying to you, if you want something for somebody to see, then you only that. When I see physicists and electronics people, they go nuts they put 10 things on a slide, 10 plots on a slide. And that is just broken. And they all do it. I don't know why. And you've done it here. One plot or one confusion matrix, one idea per slide. I didn't give you a slide limit here. So if you want me to see something, you just show that to me. I'm curious to know what you were actually trying to say in this because I was sitting there trying to follow anything. What's the most important thing that comes out of this? The base. This is talking about your baseline, not the YOLO. What is it that I need to that I learn about the baseline here?
The key takeaway is pretty much the confusion matrix on the top right. So when we train on just the Photoshop data set, it predicts real life data as always being no mask. So this kind of proves the hypothesis that we had about the data, that it's just looking at maybe color or the wrinkle. So we built a really good Photoshop detector, but not really applicable for masks in real life.
That's one point. That should have been a separate slide. But that's not the only point on this slide. Is it something to do with this one here?
Yeah, so the bottom one is with the full data set. And basically what we wanted to say was, if you look at the accuracy, despite the real life data being significantly less than the Photoshop, sorry, not significantly less, despite it making about 25% of our data, we're still able to get a very high accuracy, especially when compared with the first row.
Okay, but still really confusing here because the data set is changing as I walk down this slide, right?
Yeah.
So that just confuses me. So the full data set doesn't contain the Photoshop in it, or it does?
No, it does, yeah.
But a small fraction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I hope this is going to be really perfectly clear in your final report, but it's completely unclear in the way this is described because there's just way too many things going on here. So I don't want to take away from what I think is really good work, but that's a thing that once you get that right, people will love your presentation. So some of it I think is described. Some of that is in this picture too, right? So too much time to go into. No, that's everything I have. Phil, do you have anything?
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting analysis where you compared. First of all, great job. Yeah, this is great work. I thought it was interesting where you guys sort of analyzed the different data sets. So the only thing I'd mention is that if I understand correctly, you guys blended together the Photoshop data set and the real images one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the one thing I'd say is, I'm not sure if you already do this, but I would leave out the Photoshop data set from your validation data and validate only on the realistic data sets because it's closer to real performance. And then the other thing is, I think it's great that you're making use of this Photoshop data set because even though it's not representative of your actual task, it helps your model learn still relevant features. So what people do sometimes is train the same model on different data sets. So it's a sort of pre-training on the more poor data set, and then you fine-tune on your better data. So something that you could do is pre-train on your Photoshop data set until you saturate performance, and then and then switch over to the high quality data set to fine tune because you have less data there. But yeah, nice job. Really interesting.
I had one other question I was going to ask. Do we have a moment? Oh, yeah, the YOLO model. It was something that would be cool to teach. I had pondered when I first taught this course, assignment 4 was actually going to be find something and classify it. And I realized that's a lot to go at starting and then I realized I'd have to teach YOLO and these all things. You did a nice job of kind of giving a rough sense of that there's convolutional layers that then feed into some complex, fully connected layers. Is that right? And
Yes.
And it's somehow simultaneously locating the face and then classifying it. How is there a way to explain how that works? I guess, or is it? Yeah, is there any way to explain that? Did you understand?
Yeah. So the way, like, how can I explain this? So, Wanjin, you were working with the YOLO. Do you want to give it a shot? Or?
Yeah, sure. So instead of treating like detection and the finding bounded box and the classification as a different problem, it all has like so results of CNN, the output features have some information about the classifications as well as the bound location of the confidence of that bounding boxes. So once it goes MLP, it just shows the bounding box and the confidence and the classifications.
The output is the bounding box is an actual regression output, right? That's what's down here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess.
Yeah, because what I explained was for YOLO v1, which is very a primitive version. Like as the version processes, there's like other stuff going on within the CNN. So.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could get some intuition around how it does that, but basically the labels are but here the labels are the regression labels and the labels here are the classification labels, right?
Yep.
And you just train against that. But I guess I should go read the papers to figure out what they said. This is V5 actually. Is this recent? This must be a recent one.
Yeah, this is a recent version.
Interesting. So, by the way, for everyone else, YOLO stands for you only look once, and it's because the idea is that you only look at the picture once to both detect the area you're interested in and classify it, and it's much more efficient than the previous methods where you do it separately. And I guess the previous group, which group was doing this, was pulling up faces in here.
I think that was us. FaceTime.
FaceTime, right? So. Yeah, it's interesting to contrast those approaches. So, yeah, thanks, Mikhail. Okay, that's everything I have. This has been really interesting.